Not long after, I gave birth to a small white snake. I was told that my womb has been exchanged for wealth, that this snake was the last thing that will ever come out from my womb. I was sad when I heard about this because no one told me I was going to lose my womb. Hello, welcome guys to another episode here of K Spencer TV. This is a confession set in by a lady who used her womb and her kids for blood money rituals. Without wasting much of your time, let's jump right in. My name is Sarah. I'm from South Africa. With a heavy heart, I share this confession, hoping that you won't have to learn the hard way. If I don't sacrifice my remaining child, I will die. The devil played a very cruel trick on me. It all began 10 years ago. My husband passed away, leaving me to care for our children, Tandy, Sifo, and my youngest, Nia. With no proper education, I was stuck doing menial jobs, barely making ends meet. We lived in abject poverty. I had a friend, Landiwe, who worked with me. She always had a greedy heart for money. She often spoke about her friend, Mrs. Portier, who was incredibly wealthy. Mrs. Portier had it all: cars, houses, jewelries, and big shops around. Landiwe told me how Miss Portier revealed to her the source of her wealth, a voodoo man from Zimbabwe who performed rituals for her. Mrs. Portier said she does not mind introducing him to us, promising that he could make us rich. Landiwe pressured me until I agreed. Little did I know that this was the beginning of a very tragic story. So one morning, Landiwe and I packed our bags. We took a bus to Zimbabwe. Miss Portier gave us directions to the town where we will find the voodoo man. She gave us a phone number of a taxi man who will pick us up and take us to the shrine. When we came to Zimbabwe, we called the taxi man and he located us. He took us deep into the mountains, into a very remote part of Zimbabwe, to a village, and we drove for some distance. We got to a place where he told us that cars cannot enter, that we have to continue the journey on foot. On getting to the entrance of the place, beside the gate, there was a big tree that looked like it was 1,000 years old, and a yellow piece of cloth was tied around it. Palm oil, chicken blood, coins, kola nuts, alcohol, whatever you have, no matter how small, must be left in offering under that tree before you can go in. Immediately you go in, your eyes is set upon a very intimidating big piece of rock. It is as tall and big as a house. A strange spirit voice from the rock immediately calls out your name, where you from, and your reason for coming. When the voice called out my name, I was speechless. Terror gripped my heart. It called me a name that only my mom calls me. I almost ran back, but my companion held me back. After a while, some men wearing red came and led us into the back of a shrine, where we met the chief priest. He said Mrs. Portier told him about us. The man said that before we started any ritual, that we must take an oath with our blood, that once we start this ritual, that there is no going back, that if we are scared or having second thoughts, we can go back now, that after this point, there is no going back. We swore an oath. He cut our hand with a little knife, collected our blood and mixed it with a liquid in a small cup, gave us some to drink. He drank a little of it and poured the rest on a very scary altar. Immediately, a chicken was slaughtered and the voodoo priest used the blood coming from it to pour all over our body, starting from our head. Then led us towards a very big pot, enough to contain 3 grown-up adults. Under this pot was a white burning fire. Inside the pot was a boiling water. The voodoo priest pointed at me. I should climb inside. I did not move due to fear. I said to myself, is this man insane? Does he expect me to climb into that big pot of boiling water? Out of nowhere, 2 of his assistants took me unawares and lifted me up and dropped me into that pot. I sank inside, and the water was not hot at all. It was cool. And believe me when I tell you, it was as if this pot turned into a deep ocean. I sank deep. I saw different spirits. They were tormented souls. Some were angry and tried to attack me. Some were crying. Others warned me that I should be careful in this path I was about to go. I was told later that there were souls who did not make it past this part of the ritual, and some were sacrificed by their loved one for riches. After a while, I saw a ladder thrown into the water, and I heard a voice calling my name to climb. And I saw a big clock appear. The voice told me that I had exactly 1 minute to climb back up. The time immediately started to count down. I swam immediately to the ladder, but some of the angry souls there tried to block my way. Some held my leg, some covered my eyes so I could not see. Some spirit tried to climb out too through that ladder, but they could not. When they got to the top, it was as if a spiritual force pushed them down. It was by chance that I managed to make it to the top of that ladder. When I got to the top, the time was exactly 58 seconds. 2 more seconds and I would have been trapped there in that pot forever. I was told when I got out that I spent 6 hours, but to me it looked like 5 minutes. Landiwe, my friend, never made it out. She died down there in that evil pot. Her body was brought out. The voodoo priest tore open her body with a dagger, cut off her heart, breast, eyes and her private parts and put it in a pot, and her remaining body was placed in a coffin and pushed aside. I screamed in horror, but the man threatened that if I make any more sound, he was going to throw me back in that pot where my soul will be imprisoned forever. And he also warned me that at this point of the ritual, if I don't continue with the remaining part of the ritual, I will be struck with blindness and madness together. At this point, I was so tired from my struggle from the pot that I could hardly move. He gave me something to drink and I regained my strength. The voodoo man told me that I was about to enter the second part of the rituals. I was given a big calabash filled with water. He told me I was to carry it on my head up a mountain. I was told never to look back while climbing and not to spill a single drop of the water. Thankfully, the calabash was not heavy. We journeyed up to this mountain, and when we got to the top, there led an entrance to a very dark cave. I was told to remove my clothes, take a bath with the water from the calabash and go into that cave naked. When I get inside, I should just lie on the floor, close my eyes and don't make a sound. That whatever happens, I should be quiet and still. That if I do otherwise, I will surely die. I did as I was told. Went into that dark cave and lie down on the floor with my eyes shut and my heart pumping loud. It was not long after when a cool breeze hit me, as if something moved past me. Then the temperature dropped drastically and everywhere became cold. Then something heavy climbed on top of me. It felt like a snake. It crawled all over my body and suddenly I was penetrated in my private part. That thing had sex with me. A burning pain immediately started deep in my stomach, as if a dagger was cutting through it. I lie down there on that floor in deep pains. After a while, the voodoo man and his assistant came to carry me out. When I was carried outside, I had the rudest shock of my life. My stomach had swollen up as if I was 9 months pregnant. I felt something move in my stomach like a baby was kicking. Not long after, I gave birth to a small white snake. I was told that my womb has been exchanged for wealth, that this snake was the last thing that will ever come out from my womb. I was sad when I heard about this because no one told me I was going to lose my womb. I got over it because I already have 3 kids and was not planning on getting more. The man told me I was to keep this snake safe. As long as the snake is alive, my wealth will keep multiplying. He told me whenever the skin of the white snake starts to turn black, that it will require a sacrifice for everything to be going on well. If I don't willingly offer up a sacrifice, then terrible things will start happening, or I may lose my life. I left that place and I never told a soul about what happened to Landiwe. Thankfully, she stayed in our town all alone by herself and her family stayed in the next town, so no one could know that I was the last person who saw her alive. Her sudden disappearance would not be linked to me. People will search for her. After a time, everything would die down. I took this calabash home and put it under my bed. Money started coming to me from nowhere. I remember the first wealth that came to me. One of my distant uncle, who was very wicked, died suddenly. He was so stingy. He left all his properties and cash in the bank to me. He left nothing to his wife and kids. Something told me that it was the money ritual that I did that forced this man to write his will and leave his wealth to me. His wife and kids were devastated. They could not understand how their father left all his properties to me and left them nothing. I used that money to start a wine business and it prospered very quickly. I moved into selling furniture and cars. The devil blessed me in everything I do, but misfortune started after a while. I went to check my snake and its color was turning black, and that same night I had a terrible nightmare that my last child, who was 4 at that time, was bitten on her foot by a snake that looked exactly like the one in my calabash pot under my bed. My child became severely ill the next morning. Her temperature was running high. I took her to the doctor, but nothing could be done. The doctor could not tell what was wrong with my child, and she died in my arms not quite long after. The snake in the pot became white once more, and I got even more wealthy. 3 years later, the same thing happened to my second child. That snake turned black, and I had the same dream about the snake biting my child. And 4 days later, my second child died from a ghastly motor accident crossing the road when he was coming from school. I was so sad. I had depression where I could not go to business or even eat. I was tormented by my conscience. Right now, I'm just having my last child left, and it's already 3 years already since I lost my second child. That snake is already turning black, showing little signs of changing color. I know if I don't do anything about it, my last child is going to die. I went back to that voodoo man's place at Zimbabwe, where the voodoo man told me that nothing could be done unless I'm prepared to sacrifice my own life. I'm not prepared to let my last child die. I can't even get pregnant again because my womb has been exchanged for that snake. What is the use of having everything when you don't have anyone to enjoy it? I did this ritual so I could give them a better life, but yet the devil wants to take them all away from me. Whatever happens, I've chosen that I will sacrifice myself. I'll be going to the voodoo man again to give him the answer. I will welcome any sensible suggestion. That is why I send this confession. But please do not judge me. So guys, this is the anonymous confession I received. It's quite a sorry story. Suggestions will be welcome in the comment section. See you guys next time with another confession.